This country was definitely beautiful, as long as you weren't getting shot at. I thought about the people and rich history of this country, Afghanistan, and how fortunate I was to have been able to fly and see different parts of it. I thought again about my friends and soldiers that had lost their lives, and of those soldiers whom I helped the past year. I could not fathom how their families were dealing with their loss. I remembered when we first showed up, a comment made to us by one of the pilots we were relieving. I vividly remembered him telling us, "There's nothing going on in this country. We only had 2 shootings all year long. It's a beautiful country. Enjoy the flying and have a good time." Yeah, right.
Going to be okay.
When we found out he was being deployed to Afghanistan, my first thought was I hated for him to be away from the kids for so long. I didn't think he would be killed, but the thought of him missing out on the kids growing up if something did happen was my biggest fear. I knew there would be so much he would miss out on. He missed the kids winning awards at school, them performing in school programs, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas. Special occasions would come up, and I would get upset because the kids would get upset because all they wanted was their dad to be there. It seemed like everything broke, including the children, right after he left. The car broke down, the lawnmower broke, the septic system went out, but these were minor things compared to having to take our daughter to the emergency room when she got off the school bus with her pants soaked in blood from a playground accident, and taking our son to the doctor with a concussion after his own playground accident. There was no way to immediately contact Daniel and tell him his children were hurt. I could only go through the Red Cross to contact him, but if he was on a mission, there was no way to get a hold of him. Then the dog was bitten by a snake and everyone was freaking out. We didn't really know what was wrong with him, but his face had swelled up. When we realized it was a snake, we had all piled into the car to go to the emergency clinic. It was late at night, so they had to keep him. He was fine, but $987 later, I realized it was money that we didn't have to spend. All of the small emergencies were magnified with Daniel's absence.
She started up a conversation by asking me if I had just come back from Iraq. I told her no, that I was returning for my mid-tour break from Afghanistan. She then asked me what my rank was and what I did in the Army. I told her I was a Chief Warrant Officer 4, and I fly the Apache helicopter. She smiled and said that her son was in Iraq and that he always told her about how those Apache helicopters were really cool and how everybody always looked up to them to help them out or whenever the enemy attacked. I smiled and said, "Yeah, that's my job. I help out all those guys and girls on the ground, no matter what." I continued telling her how it may seem cool to be flying over the landscape, but nothing gave me more pride and more satisfaction than to hear some soldier come up to me days after we helped them just to let me know how much they appreciated us helping them out. Or better yet, to hear a soldier tell me that if I hadn't been there when they needed me, they didn't know if they would have made it out alive. I continued to tell her how nothing frustrated me more than to hear one of our soldiers getting killed and thinking that maybe, if I would have been there, I possibly could have done something to prevent that. She quietly thanked me for my service and said she would pray for me along with all the other soldiers in these 2 wars. I thanked her for her support and for her son's service in the military. Time went by very quickly, and before I knew it, I was boarding an American Airlines Super 80 headed for Houston. The flight was only going to last 45 minutes at the most. I sat down in first class and started thinking about how I would see my family and what I would say when I saw them. The plane came to a stop at the gate of George Bush International Airport. The flight attendant pointed at me and told me to come to the front by the exit door. The other first-class passengers behind me thanked me for my service and said I deserved to go first so I could see my family as soon as possible. An hour earlier at the main terminal, a TSA agent listened to my wife as she told him that her husband was on an American Airlines flight that would be arriving in less than 45 minutes. She asked them if there was any way she and our 7- and 11-year-old children could go to the actual arrival gate and meet their dad, who was coming back from the war in Afghanistan. The TSA supervisor pulled them aside into a special line and escorted them through security. All three of them walked anxiously and nervously through the airport terminal to the arrival gate and asked the gate attendant if this was the gate that I would be coming in on. The American Airlines gate attendant confirmed what she was asking and told them they could stand right there in front to wait for me to come out of the arrival walkway. The flight attendant and the gate attendant opened up the door to the Super 80 aircraft, and they smiled at me, thanked me again for my service, and said I was free to go up the walkway. It seemed like I was seeing my wife for the first time over 17 years earlier. I had butterflies in my stomach and was secretly thinking, I'd better not throw up. Out of my peripheral vision, I could see Shelby and Eric standing in front of her waving a sign. I don't even remember what the sign said. Lisa and I went straight to each other and hugged and kissed. Apparently, we must have been there a long time, because I felt Shelby on one side and Eric on the other side tugging at my shirt saying, "Dad." Hearing that apparently opened my ears, because that's when I realized there were people all around us in the terminal, clapping and cheering. I now had 15 days to not worry about a war on the other side of the world. Or so I thought.